Yeah, okay. Good evening, folks. This is Deb, Dave, and our special guest, Alexis. And
Hi.
this is going to be a fun night. We're going to get to talk to an actual real person on our show. And so, without further ado, we're going to just launch right into this.
So, Alexis, just introduce yourself. Um, I know you mentioned when we were talking about the questions, so I'm going to ask you, how do you identify it for you? How you doing, by the way?
Um,
And just
Good.
introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm Alexis. I'm Deb's friend. Um, I'm a trans girl, live in Boston, and love my kitty here. Uh,
So,
and I'm also Latina. I'm Mexican. I'm proud of it.
Good.
and uh, you moved from Texas to Boston. Can you tell people, especially other transgender people or young transgender people or Latina people, um, moving from a red state to a blue state, especially Massachusetts, which is very, very progressive. Kind of the decision process, how you try to figure out where to go, how you decided on Massachusetts, and a couple of tips if people are looking to move.
Well, I can tell you that meeting someone online and then moving in with them within a few months is not the ideal way to do it. Um, but that's what I did.
Okay. Now,
Uh, one thing that I wish I'd realized earlier, though, is don't assume that the state does nothing for you because you're used to living in a red state. And like get to know what is there as far as a safety net goes, because even if there is one, you always have to work for it if you're talking about the US.
now, in terms of being in Massachusetts, other than Seth Moulton, and we'll talk about him, but uh, is there anything that you could tell legislators, or other people in the state, hey, look, you really need to work on this because every state has something. Um, just
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think right now the biggest thing is the cost of living crisis for people is why I think a message like Trump's is able to appeal so much is because people are feeling desperate.
right.
And, that needs to be substantially addressed so that people can feel like government is actually working for them. Um,
Now, tell us a little bit about where you work. Tell us a little bit about what you do when you're off. Your friend. You don't have to name names, obviously, but how you met friends in Massachusetts. If there's anybody you still keep in contact with, in Texas, friends there or whatever. And also, yeah, how you were able to meet people, and hopefully you were able to meet people in the right way, and not like meet everybody online, but how did that process kind of go for you?
yeah, I moved here and I didn't know anyone other than my girlfriend at the time
Okay.
and another friend, but um, he lives in the city and I was in the suburbs. And we didn't really
Gotcha.
end up seeing each other for a while until I'd been here. Uh, so I did meet a lot of my friends online.
Right.
Deb I met through work, through one of the first jobs I had when I was here. And I've mostly just met people online through hobbies and
What
in
hobbies? What
person
hobbies
through
do you
work,
have?
really. I like coffee, a
Okay.
lot, in particular espresso. Uh, so I
We have that
hang
in
out with
common, yes.
other weirdos, and we drink way too much coffee and have a good time.
So I found a lot of people just in through board gaming. All of a sudden, they're kind of like the number of people that I met that were either transitioning or post transition or in the middle of the process. That was the big hobby that I saw that a lot of people started to go to, and then that's awesome. So you're good. I know you have Deb. Hopefully you have your safety net and your pod and all that stuff. So, but when you're around, do people immediately recognize you as either transgender or Latina? And if they do, how do they respond? And if they don't, how you feel about it?
Well, I mean, it's hard to know what people
Right.
think upon first impression, um, but I do generally expect surprise when I tell people I'm Mexican because I uh, look like this. And as far as being trans, I mean, I don't I don't know a lot of the time.
Okay.
Um, but even then, it doesn't have to matter even if someone knows, because it's just
It,
not
it
a big
really
deal
shouldn't.
unless someone makes it
A big
a
deal.
big deal.
I know there was one incident. That's the only one I know of, and I'm sorry you had to go through. Words are words, and people think they don't hurt, but they do when people don't recognize or they don't acknowledge who you are. So I know you went through the whole pronoun situation, but how is your work now? Everything's good?
It's good. I mean, it's just not an issue. It's funny how the conversation is being had by people that like just don't see that it's not actually a big deal when you meet real trans people and the people in their lives who just, call them by their name and use the right pronouns, and it's just like it's not a big deal. It really isn't, and it doesn't come up that like it's not a
Yeah, it
there's no obsession about it. It's like projection. Uh,
yeah, it depends on who makes it an issue. And,
mhm,
as we all know, in this case, one person made it an issue and I took issue with that. And, I unfortunately, I couldn't, get through to him until it actually hit him at home on his, on a personal level. And he came to me looking for input. And, all I said to him was, the chickens have come home to roost, have they? It's, you know,
Right.
it's, it's a simple question. It's the whole same thing with it seems like a ridiculous, you know, analogy, but there's only a few people in the world that get to call me Debbie, honestly, because I don't like that name for me. I'm not a
Right.
Debbie with a little heart above the eye like, people do. I mean, that
mhm,
is for my family to call me. My father called me Debbie. My mother called me Debbie. My sisters call me Debbie. My nieces call me Debbie. Everybody else, it's Deb. That's where it is. And that's not a difficult request. I don't get what the problem is with some people.
Right.
It's
Right.
a question of respecting another human being's wishes. And
I
we're all in this
100% agree.
get pot together, and why not make it pleasant instead of unpleasant? It's a ridiculous, stupid sticking point.
Mm.
Well,
It's
I'll,
like
I'll
one
talk
of the
about my
things I found really funny is this proposition to like only let teachers use the name that's on people's uh, documents. And it's just like, it's also so disconnected from like some cultures are very prone to just having nicknames as a very normal thing. And like the idea that teachers are going to be sending home forms for parents to sign so that they can call kids by the name that everyone calls them is ridiculous. And it's one of those things where obviously that's not going to happen, and it's going to be used selectively to target trans people because
So I'm
that's the whole point of it.
middle of a little thing right now with Gwen. So, obviously her high school diploma says Aaron Della Piana because none of that legal stuff had been done before the graduation. We got in the middle of COVID and it kind of threw everything off. So I haven't, of course, my child being my child, never picked up the diploma. So I'm picking it up this week, but then I get into discussion of I have all the paperwork. I'd like to have the diploma have the right name on it because now she wants to go into library sciences and take a course in that, and she's got to have a high school diploma or a GED. Okay.
Right.
So I get told by the woman in the office at Stoneham High that they don't amend diplomas. And I wrote a letter to the superintendent. I haven't heard back from him. It's been 3 or 4 days now. So I'm actually going up there tomorrow. But the response I got from the office is, we don't amend diplomas. I said, well, I'm amending a birth certificate without an issue. So why aren't you willing to amend a high school diploma? It's ridiculous. This is Massachusetts. I said it was totally without incident when I changed her social security, totally without incident when I'm changing her birth certificate. All you do is fill out a form, send $80, mail it into City Hall, and they'll mail me a new one. But you can't amend a high school diploma? So I wrote to the superintendent of Stoneham Schools, and I haven't gotten a response yet, but I'm going to get it done one way or another. I said, that is not actually what the state of Massachusetts is telling me. So we need to find a way to make this work, So
any issues in regards to you being Latina?
No, not
No, okay.
generally.
Okay. But the other thing is the story I wanted to tell you real quick is that um when we go to the restroom in our facility, at post office, on occasion we'll have females walk in to clean while we're going to the bathroom. Everything's cool, whatever. And then we had one temporary employee who she was transgender. She went, she was post transition, and she was being harassed because she was going to the. I'm like, wait a minute. You have cleaning ladies going in there. What do you care? What does it matter? Oh, well, this is different. This is the agenda. Oh, stop it. You know, this whole thing about the agenda. I, no one should be accused of having an agenda just for existing.
I mean, I think it gets okay. So I have two thoughts about the agenda thing that I
Yeah.
think are important. The first being that a lot of the things people say are meaning in search of words. They have a feeling and they want to express it in a way that is just removed enough from what they actually think so that it doesn't immediately get a negative response. And so bullshit gets created. But the other thing is, like, unfortunately, on the other hand, there are also people who genuinely believe that the very existence of gay and trans people is a ploy of a secret cabal.
yes,
Uh,
yes, you are
Right.
correct.
and, it sounds the same as the other version unless you get them to go into it. But
Right.
there are those who believe that. And one thing I find alarming is Project 2025 100% has that language that implies that it is a secret cabal forcing transgenderism on the kids,
It is.
which is really,
absolutely.
really frightening to me as a skeptical, rational person who also happens to be trans.
Right. And in terms of the whole agenda thing and all of that, Deb and I will give you that we're not going to get into that too much, but uh, I absolutely would love to see you watch the show that we did, kind of the non-political show, to try to explain everything. And yeah, Deb and I probably wouldn't have done it if Deb wasn't a partner in this, because I want to make absolutely sure when I give information that there is some basic in fact. That's why we do, the Factivist report. But that whole thing, um, I will say this too. Um, I'm doing my part inside of my building. There are people who from time to time, I have been a union representative for almost 20 years. I'm chief steward of my tour. People will come to me and say, okay, I want to be a rep. And then say, well, what about those Greeks? What about are you pro trans or whatever? Are you this? Are you pro and rhetoric? And I'm like, it's about representation. We'll get into how I know you had a question about how we move forward with the Democratic Party. To me, it's all about representation. You may not agree with everything that everybody does, but just represent them and listen to them, especially when it comes to something specific to them that you don't understand, whether it be transgender, being transgender, or LGBTQ, and this whole thing about, oh, you chose. No, you don't choose this. You don't. So Deb and I had that conversation too, where it's like you don't choose to be that, or someone, I have a disorder. Oh, he's using it to get what he wants. No, that's not how this works. So I think that having conversations like these, and you can recommend a coffee to me. Actually, I'm getting into tea, to be honest, because I'm getting older, and
He's
all
a
this
cheaper
stress is
hobby.
making me
Huh?
congested. So
What did you say?
Tea's a cheaper hobby.
Yeah.
it absolutely is,
Yeah.
and but just we all have shared experiences, and we need to also just embrace that as well. I mean, I don't understand, and the DEI stuff.
I'm so
I,
done with all of that
It's
nonsense.
just a dog whistle.
yeah.
It's a way to say the N-word without saying the N-word half the time.
So
It's like I really do think, Kamala Harris hit on something when she said we have more in common than we don't. And I think that's true. I just think that, I say it all the time. I think MAG is like a cult. I think they don't realize that they're just like us. They have the same issues. Most of the people that I see come into my store, and I know the MAGas from the non-MAGas, right?
right,
None of those people are breaking the bank. They're going to suffer just like everybody else. And I think that they just can't see it. I don't, I think it's from continual look. We've been listening to this guy and listening to Fox and all these outlets for 10 years. And I just think there are some
right,
people that fall into that rabbit hole that just can't climb out of it, even if the stuff is right in front of their face, you know? And
right.
that's why I actually gave up talking to those people, because I found myself just spending inordinate amounts of time and energy trying to convince people that I can't help because I'm not a professional deprogrammer. It's just, I lose
Right,
patience.
right,
I just,
I
you know,
appreciate the comparison to a cult. I think that often gets thrown around too lightly, but in this case, there is a very consistent self-reinforcement to the narratives that get propagated that are constantly asking you to disbelieve and to isolate what kind of reality you allow yourself to see. Um, and it's also a little bit bewildering because, it's such an extreme, distorted version of reality that would justify doing a whole lot more than voting.
Right.
Right. Right.
And
If you really truly believed in all of that. And so it's almost I couldn't tell you, how it shakes out in terms of responsibility and intentionality, but it certainly has that effect, and it puts people in a place where they would have to lose so much of what they've built up in this alternative view of the world in order to accept like just any little piece of information that it builds them up like a house of cards.
right.
So, in terms of the dog whistles, how do we cope with that? Because I dealt with, as I said, I dealt with that back in 2016, 2017, especially right around, if you remember the Scalise shooting.
Hmm.
Oh, Dave, you shouldn't have a gun. I'm like, well, first off, I'm not going to have a gun because I don't like guns. I had people in my family who were allowed to have guns because they didn't have my condition that were idiots with them. So, but in terms of dog whistles, like hey, you can't do this or you can't do that, or transgender people in sports, all of that kind of thing. How do you respond to the dog whistles? Do you respond to the specific quote unquote issue, or do you respond in a different way? Um, and I'm talking about to everybody, to like just people on the street that talk to you or like hit you with that, or uh, how do we get to a point where we can speak to our representatives and say no, like the
I think
Seth
that
Moulton and like Swazi.
I think that the first thing is recognizing that like part of the insidiousness of dog whistles is that they are intentionally vague and disconnected from the thing that they convey, which allows them to be popularized while meaning different things for different people. So what I think is important is taking an individual approach when it comes to addressing it, because there is a very substantial difference between, when someone says elites and means Jews compared to when someone means like Democrats compared to when someone means like people that exist that I don't like. And you have
Right,
to address the
right,
underlying thing that's
right.
actually being expressed. Um, and the other thing is, I don't know if there is a helpful way of talking about it to people necessarily. I think you're going to have an easier time the further from the cliff's edge someone is to begin with. Um, but that generally engaging with the points of discussion is just completely fruitless because it's bait to keep you from talking about the real thing that they
So
actually care about regarding it. And so they
I
can
have a couple of
take
questions
you in
on this.
circles with debate
Yeah,
forever,
right,
but you're never going to get anywhere if you do that.
right. Of course. Now, if I believe that Swazi has backed off of that, and I don't know about Seth Moulton, but I think part of the way we deal with it is conversations, and um, it is possible. It is possible for a straight white guy to speak to people of the LGBTQ community and be received well, because all people need to do is listen and get out of their own head with their own preconceptions. All right. That's to me, that's it. But another one, So have you ever been told no, that you can't go to the bathroom or you can't do this or you can't do that?
Not in a serious way, just like
Joking around?
I've had some weird experiences, but for the most part,
Okay.
not really anything like that.
Okay. So here's what I will say to anyone who is not friendly to this, or who is, who just happens to watch it. How do you like it when you're told you can't do something? How do you like it when you're told you can't go into a Burger King and without a mask on, or you can't travel, this, that, and the other thing? How do you like it? Just think about it before you tell somebody else they can't do something. That's what I would say to those people. But in terms of representation, I know you met Sarah McBride. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Um, yeah, so Sarah McBride with uh obviously, it's amazing that she's highest serving trans woman and being a representative. Um, and unfortunately, that in this dynamic merits a response to signify that she won't be accepted and that it's, the culture war narrative will push on. And so
Of course.
bathroom bills are back. Uh,
Sorry about that.
and it's really unfortunate. She's not the first trans woman to use bathrooms at the Capitol. That's not going to be the last. Quite frankly, the whole bathroom thing is ridiculous, and I go back and forth between thinking it's so ridiculous it doesn't a response isn't even appropriate to thinking that, well, yeah,
Well, how did you
there
what
is
did you
maybe
yeah,
someone who is reachable
right?
within that.
What did you think of Chelsea Manning going to the bathroom and getting arrested?
I am all for civil disobedience.
You too.
Right. I mean, hey, not for nothing. Get a bunch of transgender people together and just all pee at the same time,
You
kind of
know,
like a
I'll tell you,
flash mob.
I'll tell you what really gets under my skin.
Yeah,
When they characterize transgender women in the bathroom as big, beefy, hairy men, right?
yeah,
Waiting to assault women. Now, we live in a nation where, unfortunately, all the gloves are off with women now. Okay, we have a pending cabinet full of sexual predators. All right, every single person that Trump has gotten his inner circle has had either been convicted, including himself, or has accusations, credible accusations against them. Nobody has to pretend to be what they are just to get into a woman's bathroom so they can assault them. It seems to be pretty normalized in American society now. Unfortunately, I think that's one of the most sad things I've seen. Maybe this has always been here. It probably has, but it was in the fucking closet before.
right,
Now we have
right,
actually got a Telegram chat of 70,000 men across the world talking about drugging and raping women. And it's a real thing. It was investigated in Germany. It's not a
right.
made up story. It's in the Independent. It's been confirmed. So that notion, first of all, is disgusting to me. But I just want to go back to Seth Moulton for 1 minute because that actually, his whole conversation surrounding his 3 and 6 year old little girls, he didn't want them run over while playing sports. Well, they're not playing sports as far as I know.
Right.
And there is no 3 or 6 year old undergoing gender affirming care that I know of in the Massachusetts school system right now. And
Right.
the reason it shocked me is because Seth Moulton has been a supporter of every single piece of legislation that's come up to protect both gay and transgender people. And that came out of left field for me. It really made me angry.
Right.
And
I mean,
unfortunately,
I think
I'm not his constituent. I'm in the Boston area, but I did write to Catherine Clark about that and told him to get her little, minions in order. So,
Oh,
Well, I think that shows how the trans kids in sports issue is just like it's like a perfect wedge to get people to just react emotionally
right,
to it and not even really think about it and consider the reality of things. And that is the point. That
right,
imagery of oh, my daughter's getting run over is exactly what it's supposed to evoke.
right,
And it's on the point about the normalization of violence towards women, that is one of those things that scapegoating trans women as
right,
predators allows them to draw attention away from the actual dynamics of abuse. It's the same thing with QAnon and the pedophile rings and stuff. It's
right,
a ridiculous alternate reality that says that everything that is real about how abuse happens, about how people uh, get assaulted, is the opposite of what it is,
right.
and it's very
so
um,
yeah,
problematic. I I don't know how else to put it.
in the 70s, the whole message was the gays are coming for your kids, right?
Mhm.
It
I'm
was.
like,
It
I'm
sure
like,
was.
so, and then what's so insidious about it, seriously, is that not only are you demonizing a group that isn't doing what you're saying they're doing, you're shielding actual predators. Okay,
Yep.
so that is the problem. And I'm not going to get too much into the medical. I will just say this as a matter of fact. I scoured the internet. I searched it. No one is taking hormone therapy prior to puberty. It is pointless. Puberty blockers are there to block hormones created by puberty.
Right,
There are no 5-year-old kids that I know of that are going through puberty. Now, there's earlier, people are going earlier, as early as 11, and maybe in very rare occasions 10. But no, and the problem is that the propaganda is so pervasive. You talk to people, they just look at you with a blank face and just they will not take facts sometimes, which goes into the whole cult thing. I think that we're gonna have to go through the whole FAFO thing. People are gonna have to feel their own pain and then maybe look back. Maybe we'll get some people back that way. But um, in terms of uh, politically, um, so you mentioned how do we try to to keep any semblance of humanity in the political process and kind of move this back. Yes, I believe MAGA is just if it's allowed to spread, it's going to infect and destroy the country. It really is. But how do we get people's humanity back and get people to care, even to the point where they used to before?
I mean, I honestly I don't know how you get people to care necessarily. Like I think you'd have to, in large part, alleviate the pain they're feeling so that they can, put attention towards others. But I think another thing is just, it's revealing a lot of what's been there for a long time, as opposed to it being a new thing that's rising out of nowhere.
it's not anything
Um,
new,
It's not anything.
exactly.
There are,
Uh,
look, it's just like the whole definition of woke has been around for decades. Okay. We all know what that is. All right. It is, you know, having empathy, understanding community, making sacrifices for the greater good. You know, it's like the whole vaccination thing, right? When my kids were growing up, right? I had a show every year when they went to school, all the way from grammar school right up through high school, that they had a physical and that they were vaccinated. I had no, and I still to this day have no idea how people find that an affront to their freedom. I just,
Right.
it's mind boggling. It's called the public health. I don't want my kids going to school with unvaccinated people. I really just don't.
Right.
You know, not in this world. I don't. You know, it was bad enough when I was a kid. I had everything. I had chicken pox. I had mumps. I had measles. I had German measles. I was really sick with those. That was before vaccines. Okay, it was bad enough then. Now, picture it now with international travel the way it is. Okay, it's it's just not a good plan to. And so I don't understand where the whole medical freedom thing came from. I think again it was a political construct, and
Right.
it got used to drive a wedge, and it is just dumbed down a percentage of the population that never thought about that before, never thought about it, never worried about it. I still don't worry about it, but I'm me. I'm not other people, so I can rationalize things and understand why we have things like that. Do we have some people who have adverse reactions? Well, shit, you know what? We have some people who are allergic to penicillin. Nobody knew it until they took it. It's just the way it is in the world. You can't account for everybody in the world.
Right.
There are
I do think there are some people that fundamentally struggle with nuance, and that is part of the breakdown. Is like
It
the
is.
idea that something can be more than the idea that something can't be boiled down to a sentence is like the baseline for understanding a lot of things like vaccines having risks, but also those risks being very rare.
right,
Um, and there's another element to this, which is, what I brought up earlier about having to take it, to the individual, what they're bringing with their anti-vax rhetoric, because, there's levels to it. There's the people who are just propagandists, but, there's the people who will just, they don't like needles, and there's a whole set of justifications around how they will avoid it at all costs because it's, and they've declared it poison as such. And that's going to be a different thing to address than someone who has just
Yeah.
absorbed the propaganda and just genuinely believes, oh, there's lead in the vaccines and it's going to make me dumb. I'm going to get cancer and die.
they're
Because
injecting.
those are just fundamentally different positions, even though they all look the same from the outside. And like I think that's the challenge for Democrats moving forward is starting to engage with Republicans with that view that like th don't stop at the what the words add up to that are coming out of their mouths
Right,
and
Right.
talk about like
Right.
what are we actually talking about here?
right,
Because I don't know that that'll work. It could be just as unproductive, but I mean, look at where we are. We got to try something different.
right, right,
I honestly think that it is the working class. The Democrats are right. They do have to get back to the working class, but the working
100%.
class is much more diverse than it used to be.
yep,
So, and by the way, Deb mentioned the word woke. Woke came from African American culture.
right,
Okay, so I mean, of course they're going to decline that, but in
It's
terms
the same
of
thing as bringing up Martin Luther
yeah,
King Jr. to excuse their racism, right? It's
yeah,
this
oh yeah,
there's a
yeah,
rich irony to it that they enjoy because it is wrong in that way. It is distorting its origins
right.
right.
in order to do the opposite of what it's meant to convey.
So just out of curiosity, you were mentioning this kind of stuff, the symbols and the flags flying at half staff for Carter. No, we won't have that. Or, oh, no rainbow flags, no safe spaces. how do any of these things harm anyone? I mean, we do have to get back. We do have to get back to cultural diversity in teachings in school and all of that. Right now, I don't know if we could even get there, but I mean, how would you, in terms of, let's say, a book banning? Someone bans a book that is about LGBTQ, and oh, this is dangerous. Uh, how do you guys respond? Seriously, do you read it
I
on
mean,
camera? I mean,
I don't know, because like it's also, I think about the way I was taught history in school and how distorted of a view uh, that was presented with. And I also think about the fact that there are absolutely people on the right today who would say that the education I received about the history of the US was too woke.
Right.
And so it's like it goes beyond banning books about LGBTQ people. Like I think the key question is this the or are we going to treat it as the sign of the first indication that there is a desire to just completely rewrite history and write people out of existence, which is the way I see it right now, is
I do.
there's
I
a
agree with you.
clear writing out of existence of anyone who is not a straight
Right.
nuclear family,
Right.
right,
married kids, demonization of single motherhood is back, all that stuff. Um, and that it would be ridiculous to think it's not going to progress. That it's not going to progress to denying that the Jim Crow era was as bad as it was,
Right.
denying that segregationists were in Congress as recently as they were, like really getting into the fact that there is a contingent of people whose historical beliefs about this country are not rooted in what happened, but America is the greatest country ever. It will continue to be the greatest country ever. It is,
right,
like blessed by God
It will
and shall rule over the earth.
it will only be the greatest country. It will only stay the greatest country ever if we make sure it's not diverse. Okay.
right,
That's
right.
really where they go with that. You mentioned the education you received. So let me take you back to my generation. It's really weird when I think back now. I went through 14 years of Catholic school. I think my education was more advanced than what they're getting now. I really do. I think there were things that I look back now on what I was learning from the nuns that were kind of woke, right? I mean,
Right.
it was a weird thing. It's a very weird thing. It's
But
like
also,
I
like
tried,
the Bible is woke by
right,
their standards.
right, well, right. So when you think about it, I mean, we learned about, Jesus, flushed the Pharisees out of the temple. He didn't want the rich people in there. Well, we're fucking got an oligarchy going right now here in the United States, right? When I think about all of that stuff, and then I listen to an asshole like Mike Johnson talk, I say to myself, I would love to have my eighth grade teacher, my eighth grade nun in front of him right now, because she had some things to say. It's just funny that I listened to some of that. Of course, some of it was utter bullshit. I get that whole thing. I mean, like I said, 14 years of Catholic school was enough to put me off organized religion for the rest of my life. So, but I have to say, they would, if they think this stuff is woke now, they definitely wouldn't like my early education anyway. They might have thought that was way too radical.
Well, as a as a as a white male student in Virginia, what I was taught about quote unquote gay culture, yeah, men slept with boys, in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. That's what we were told. We weren't told about any of the struggles. We weren't told, knew nothing. I didn't know anything about Stonewall until, a long time after that. Harvey Milk. How did I know about Harvey Milk? The movie. That's how I found out about him. So and Deb and I were talking about there was one um, gay congressperson, and we're like, we can't remember his name, but it's
Jerry
like,
Studs. Jerry Studs, wasn't it?
no, it was someone else.
Oh, because Jerry Studs was Massachusetts, wasn't he?
I believe so, yeah. And but the whole point is that these people existed, and these people also existed, in secret. Why? For what reason?
I mean, one of my
I'm
favorite examples is the universal public friend, right?
Okay,
Using non-gendered pronouns way back when,
right,
and it's like that is why I think getting lost in these arguments about, oh, can trans kids play in sports? It's dumb because the thing that's at the root of it is like, are you ready to accept that trans people exist and have existed and like are just people like you, or are you not?
right,
We'll
Because it's
get you
like,
the $15 million ad campaign against the transgender population. No, they're not going to accept it because
no, and like
that was
that is
insanity.
the other aspect of it, right? It's like
Right.
we already know fact checking isn't going to save us. But it's egregious, to say that HRT is experimental, to say that puberty blockers are unsafe.
right,
Like
Right.
it's just craven. There is no reason to engage with it as though it's serious unless someone legitimately believes that stuff because they've been led to.
Alexis, you don't understand. We have a doctor in our midst in Rand Paul. He's an eye doctor. He knows all about it. Come on. I mean,
I mean,
seriously.
it's worse than that. Like the
Yeah.
Cass report is something that conservatives here
Right.
leverage to
Right.
act like, oh, we have an epidemic of uh, young people transitioning, when that's just such a an unrealistic view of the data that is actually there.
right,
And it's this presupposition that like people being trans is bad.
right, right,
We're never allowed to talk about that part. That like, why is it a problem?
right. Why is it your business? That's the bigger question. It's really not anybody's business. It's not the government's business, and it certainly isn't my neighbor's business. It's nobody's business.
Right.
And it almost gets me to the thing where like I think unfortunately, it's very easy to talk about the danger trans people are in right now, but it's a means to an end that is so much worse than just what they want to do to trans people. I mean, like the parental rights movement is
Right,
leveraging the hot button issue in order to push their narratives so that they can uh, make it harder to prevent child abuse. Like
exactly.
I think we would do ourselves a disservice getting too focused on just this issue, um, and just what is on the table right now, because there's a much darker roadmap that is worse than this already pretty bad place we're in.
Right.
And it's genuinely pretty scary that people with these intentions are anywhere close to power.
I do want to give a shout out, and I'm using her maiden name because this happened over 10 years ago. Amy Toms, she a board gamer that I knew and know in Connecticut. She was in a Walmart bathroom. You can check out the David Packman clip is still somewhere. She was in a bathroom and she had a baseball cap on. She, kind of dressed in a non-feminine way, and someone came, oh, you disgust me, and you need to get out of here and stop going after our kids and all this nonsense. And Amy didn't know what was going on, and then she did a viral video about it because she realized that this person thought that she was transgender. My thing too is if you're worried about the kids, Deb and I, we've talked about it. You're worried about the kids, but you're not going to make child marriage illegal. Um, this
They're not worried about the kids.
no,
They
of
don't
course
care
they're
about them.
not. Of course they're not.
They
You
don't
know,
care about the
I
kids.
mean, that's
They don't, they don't care about, they may care about their kids, but they don't care about your kids. Let's put it that way,
exactly.
you know?
Well, they don't care about their kids either.
Right.
As far as them getting to be free individuals that are able to disagree and be different than their parents.
Right.
right.
Exactly.
So no, they just don't care about children as individual people separate from themselves.
Right.
Every child is an extension of them, and that is, you know,
Unfortunate.
fundamentally not an appropriate way to treat the rights of children.
Right.
I just and my fear, especially on Long Island, Long Island has been infested with misinformation. And a lot of the movement to the right, some of it was gerrymandering, whatever, but this just right wing propaganda machine, what what would you say to people in those school board meetings and all of that stuff? And would you consider going to school board meetings and explaining to people what it is? Uh, I wouldn't want anybody to put themselves in harm's way. Some of these guys are way crazy, but what do we do to get this back? What do we do to get our school system back?
I mean, honestly, like I've said, I don't know what the silver bullet is for this,
Yeah,
but I don't think it's productive to engage with the propaganda itself.
Right.
Um, like in terms of me going to a board meeting, not like a school board meeting and
yeah,
that kind of thing. I think something I could do that is unique is really try and make it personal in a way where, I can tell someone like, okay, so like you're worried about your daughter getting sexually assaulted in the bathroom. Do you think I'm a pedophile?
Right.
Because that's the implication.
Right. Right.
And there is the only thing I can think of is that level of directness where you either have no response, maybe you're driven to reconsider because that is what you're saying, or at least for anyone else that's watching, they can see the absurdity. But I think people are also difficult to change. And once you're at the point that you're so convinced that this is a problem that you're going to rant and rave at a fucking school board meeting, you're
It's,
pretty you're in deep
yeah, you're
and
pretty far
you're
gone.
not going to be easy to convince.
right, right. And in terms of that, I mean, I don't know of anyone inside the Democratic Party really that has gone that far, that has talked that kind of hateful rhetoric because it won't be tolerated within the Democratic Party. It just won't. But I'll ask you this. Um, I know you mentioned before about Sarah McBride that you were disappointed. You understood it, but you were disappointed that she didn't stand up as much as she did. When you have someone else like a Tristan Cinema who was LGBTQ and she did some of the things that she did, if you were in her district, would you write her and tell her, what's going on? Why are you doing the things that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean it's important to do it
I
Right.
think so
because
too.
you have to you have to at least try to get that across, and your voice is part of a small minority.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that doesn't, it has an unfortunately hard time fighting against this because it's just so skewed, the amount of trans people that there are and the amount of people that there are to hate trans people are vastly different populations. Um,
But I'm on a lot of social media sites. It's not just Facebook, it's all of them. I just got on Threads this week, and and I'm probably on 12 social media sites. There are a lot of LGBTQ supporters out there too. And I tell them the same thing. If you are a supporter, you need to write your congressman as well. Not just me,
mhm.
not just my gay friends, all you guys. I mean, look, I've spent years doing this, okay? I made a pain in the ass of myself to most of my elected representatives.
You
And
nah.
I, but it's like it's just like, when I look at social media, I think it's done a great disservice to a lot of the activism. It's great for organizing, but these people
Right.
cannot follow you and your commentary on social media all day. So you've got to find ways to engage. They have emails for a reason. They have phone numbers for a reason. There are some people where you can even call and make comments. They have comment lines for a reason. And we all have cell phones now. Okay. We can all make use of these things. And we need to start doing that, especially now. Okay. And it's great. Like I said, I can't say I hate social media because I'm on it. Will I be on it if when I'm done with this and I'm too old to do it anymore? Probably not. I'm not going to post pictures of my kids and cats and dogs all day long. I'm on here mostly for one reason. If you look at my profile on Facebook, there's almost nothing personal on it. It's
Right.
use it for
Right.
that purpose. Um, but I think another thing is, while I think that, memes have their place in the world, people need to actually read again. People need to, the devil is in the details for everything, okay? And,
Right.
I'm sorry, but memes just don't do it. They're great for, making a statement. But to understand what's behind it all, you actually have to read what's out there. You have to read. I don't understand how people don't understand it. It's important to read legislation. Just read it's out there. You can get it on Ballotpedia. You don't need to.
It's boring.
I
That's why
know,
people don't do it.
no, but you know what? It's your life. you
No,
know,
I agree. I
no,
mean,
but just even reading articles. Okay, I'm done with the Post and I'm done with the Times. I'm done with them all. But the Guardian? I'm on board with the Guardian, and it's free and it's
Right.
good and it covers
The,
shit
yeah.
nobody else will cover. You know?
the Guardian, the Advocate,
Yeah, the
uh,
Advocate's great too.
l-
But
uh, local.
Mother Jones is great. I've been reading Mother Jones
Yeah.
since 1971, for crying out loud. Um, but there are places out there where you can get information and you don't have a paywall. Now,
And there's an independent media renaissance right now because the situation is so bad with the
it
mainstream
is.
publishers.
It is.
So there's
Speaking
new
speaking of the Washington Post,
small indie outlets popping up every day now.
I canceled my Post subscription after I don't know how many years I've had it. But the one person I miss on the Washington Post is Jennifer Rubin. She's a former conservative, by the way, a former Republican who got off the boat with Trump. And she always said from the beginning that the biggest mistake that the mainstream media made was not treating Trump like he was a cult leader. And she was right about that, right? And I don't read the Post anymore, so I don't get to see her every day, post, but I do watch her green room on YouTube, and that's just as good. So, um,
Say two things that I want to work on and work with you on, Deb, and Alexis, you as well. Anyone who's willing to do this, share, especially local news sources there are a ton of great local news sources everywhere, but they get overshadowed by, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Boston Globe. I'm not saying the Boston Globe's not good still, but I'm
Good.
just saying local news outlets. And by the way, find local groups. Shout out to Suffolk Progressives, Shoshana Hershkowitz, and everyone on there, and find your own way. Okay, just find your own way. What I will also suggest here, and this is an exclusive, Deb. If I would like for us to somehow start collecting or create a Facebook, whatever group, whatever, people can share their letters to their congressman or to their local politicians. We need to start promoting this because your politicians will show you who they are, especially if they respond to you. I will tell you one. I don't know, Alexis, if you're aware of this person. He's not my. He's not. I'm not a constituent of his, but Richie Torres. I'm very torn about him at this point. He has, from time to time, said really nasty things on Twitter to people, especially when they disagree with him about Israel Hamas. And he also, after we lost, said that that we lost because of the radical left, whatever the hell that is. He mentioned, from the river to the sea and Latinx. I thought it was weird that he did not mention the whole anti-transgender uh, propaganda campaign against Harris. He's also looking to run against Kathy Hochul for governor. But I found out from Deb just today that he is gay. Now, that doesn't matter if you don't represent the people. Yeah, you can go to rallies and things of that nature. Fine, great. What are you doing for that community? What are you doing for the transgender community? By the way, you're railing on the quote unquote far left, and you're helping the Republican Party, whether you like it or not. So I think we need to communicate to our representatives in that way. And by the way, Alexis, are you in political office?
No.
Okay. This is a regular person with regular hobbies. I hope you heard her say it. We're not in the process of like going and trying to get the newest hot politician who's running for office.
Yeah.
We don't really do that. We're doing what the Democrats are complaining we people aren't doing, which is reaching out to normal people and reaching out to the working class. Which just kind of as closure. Alexis, if you would you like to say what you do at your job?
Yeah, I work in live audiovisual production, so work with sound equipment and uh, lights and cameras and
Any
stuff.
any specific projects you're working on that you want to share or no?
No,
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 no.
it's the slow season anyway.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, so have you seen any of these like uh mass or overproduced quote unquote documentaries or whatever from the right wing?
No, like that hasn't been in my
That's not in your
consumption, my
wheelhouse.
diet. Yeah,
You'll know but
not
yeah.
that I'm opposed to sticking my head in a vat of acid as far as tolerating that kind of thing goes, but
In other words, there's nothing you don't already know that you need to know by doing that, right?
Right, of course, of course. Like how many times did I have to hear about going postal?
Yeah, I know.
You know, I'm like, oh my God. All right, yeah, I'm going postal. Whatever. So, but um, in before we end, Alexis, is there anything that you want to tell us or tell the people watching this before we go?
Yeah, it's, be yourself. Don't back down. Um, Making you afraid to be proud, to be out and open
What they
is
want.
entirely part of trying to repress people's identities. And so don't let them don't let them get it. It's
Yep.
I'm not gonna fault anyone for not for wanting to prioritize their safety, but it is also the reality is that our safety is collectively uh, a sacrifice that is built
Well,
upon
yeah.
people who stand up and face the consequences of being different.
And I don't know how many people, I don't know if you know anyone who's LGBTQ and GLP, but just
That's the world's
look
most toxic
look
world.
around, look around and uh, I don't even know what to say about that,
Look,
but
Melania Trump cashed a six-figure check for speaking to the log cabin Republicans. So I just, that is something that is beyond the realm of my understanding. Okay. I've never understood the log cabin Republicans. They're not new. Okay. They were around when I was voting for Bill Clinton. They've
right,
been here for a very long time.
right.
And I just don't get it. I don't. And
I
I've actually
I don't
spoken
either.
to them and I still don't get it. I've actually had conversations with a couple of them and I still
Right.
don't get it. I just don't get it.
By the
They're
way,
not gonna get it until they get their own Night of the Long Knives.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
That's just how
and
it is.
yeah, I yeah, I just
It's
exactly,
like women for Trump.
exactly,
I don't get that either. It's as
right.
stupid as women for Trump, in my opinion. But there's no accounting for some people.
Yep,
I mean, I
100%.
85%, I believe it was that
The
of the
LGBT community
LGBT
came out at
community.
pretty close to 85% for Harris.
Now,
So
in terms of the 15%, I don't get it. I really don't get it.
maybe they didn't vote. 90
Maybe they
million
didn't
people
vote.
stayed home. So we
Right,
don't know. But
right.
um, so yeah, this has been great. And you will come back, right?
Yes. It was lovely
Uh,
chatting with y'all.
All right.
Thanks. So I'm looking to I'm reaching out to other people. Um, one thing that I have to say that people are kind of a melting pot within themselves. It's not just about I'm this or that or the other thing. There was someone that I just spoke with yesterday that is yeah, she has a girlfriend, but she's also both Dominican and she's Haitian. So, it's like uh the Republicans are a equal opportunity offender. Let's just put it that way. So
That's why I define it so strongly around rejecting anything that isn't straight white Christian nuclear families, because that is,
That's exactly what they're about.
at any one point, they'll be supporting certain things, but that is only out of convenience. The
right.
core of it is that, and that is important to keep in mind.
Well, by the way, straight, white, and completely mentally and physically healthy, and that support them. Just so you
Right.
know, I'm not one of the
They're not they're
by
not
any
any
stretch of the
they're not
imagination.
any better with the disabled either. I can tell you that.
Right.
They're really not. I mean, it's almost like that, survival of the fittest attitude. They definitely have that.
Oh,
They-
yes, that is.
no
Well,
Well,
question.
it's because social Darwinism allows them to say that racism is natural,
right.
that all these
Right.
systemic things are just the natural result of people being more or less fit.
Right. Right.
One last thing to end it. Um, is there anything that you want legislated? I know you cannot legislate away hate. I know that. But in terms of resources or anything of that nature, is there anything that you're specifically looking at this year? And she might have left.
I am.
Go ahead.
Well, as I've said, uh, I think that we need to get, I don't know how many states have a bill, an equal rights amendment in their state constitution. But I believe we have enough now to make that a constitutional amendment. The only gating factor is that this arbitrary date, and I've talked about this before,
Right.
that the Congress put on that of 7 years. All right. The last state to become the 38th state, I believe, was Kentucky, but it was outside the 7-year
Right.
term.
Yeah.
And then there were 4 states, I don't know, 5 states that reneged on their constitutional amendment. However, in the eyes of Kirsten Gillibrand, none of that is constitutional. You can't go back on that. There is no provision that allows you to go back, A, and that whole deadline of 7 years was not in the constitutional, the Article 5 that gave you the right to do this, okay? There was never a stipulation on time frame.
Right.
So
Right.
neither one of those are viewed as constitutional. So what I would like to see the American people start pushing is the Equal Rights Amendment and the expanded Equal Rights Amendment. That's not just about women, but it's about all of us. All right.
Right.
As we've seen, that's been done in New York. They bolstered their ERA bill. I think that's something that we need to push for.
And not only that, I mean, now within New York, the issue is enforcement.
Right.
And now Deb and I will get into it. But Bruce Blakeman, not only he's Nassau County, New York, not only is he pushing this transgender and sports ban, he refuses to fly the flag at half staff for Jimmy Carter, because he doesn't think that Carter was a good president. So I'll shoot back.
Yeah, just let it back in.
Hey, sorry.
No, it's okay. Just wanted to ask one final question. Is there anything that you're looking at specifically for this year legislatively? Deb mentioned Prop 1, which we just passed, and she wants basically for the Equal Rights Amendment to be bookmarked. But in terms of anything, did you have anything that you saw or no that you would like to see push, especially in Massachusetts?
Yeah, I don't have a particular policy push right now, but definitely
Trust me, it'll be coming.
abortion and trans
Right.
rights and
If you
more explicit written anti-discrimination laws,
Yes.
so that there's
Yes.
no textualist bullshit that anyone can pull, are all things that I think are very, very important right now.
Yep.
Since even the reading from Bostock is being treated as insane by some conservatives. And so
it's important to go there as well, based on everything you see in Project 2025. It really is
100%.
It has to be as specific and expanded as it possibly can be. It's even if we have to put a list of people in the damn thing to make sure that everybody is covered, because
Right.
they're really forcing our hand in that direction, and we haven't got a choice in that. you know?
Yeah.
If we, if you write any of your legislators, we would love to see it. Deb and I will talk about. I didn't even get a chance to really float the idea yet, but I think it's important. One of the big things, of course, inclusion is important and communication. So, we have so many people who complain about the Democrats that have never written their Democrat or never worked with a Democrat ever. So,
Mhm.
we have to, if you want something, write them.
Make it known. And social media is not the ideal place for that. It's not. It just isn't. You have
I already,
representatives. You need to make sure that you're a pain in their ass. That's just the way it works.
right. I just saw two or three people say, hey, TikTok isn't real life. Social media isn't real life. And in some cases it is. In some cases it's not. In some cases you're just selling stuff. So, do I think TikTok's going to stick around? I do, Deb. I
I do.
do. Because they're making way too much money off of it. They really
Well,
are.
I
So,
think even from user side, it's an appealing product. It's also an addictive product, and there's always the incentive to keep coming back because about that slot machine
right.
aspect to it of you don't know what you're gonna get and you're hoping for some good
Right.
Have
and you're
you,
just like coming back for another spin.
I hope you're okay. I mean, I hope you haven't been doom scrolling. I doom scrolled a little bit in the beginning, but I hope people understand that um, social media is a tool. Don't get sucked into it. Deb mentioned it. Okay, we're not going to make a difference just being on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Well, it's not going to happen. It's how you can meet people. I really do appreciate you coming on, and yeah, I'm glad that we were able to give you a place to express yourself instead of going on one of these silly things where, just hop on and just talk. Those never work. And
Well,
Deb and I are going to talk about what we're going to be doing or what we suggest people do. That's one of the things people should stop doing. It is addictive. It is a dopamine fix for some people. Oh, I did something today. I tweeted. No, no,
I
no.
mean, it's that's where I think it's complex because
It is.
it
It is.
serves a purpose and it's not entirely, it's not screaming into the void entirely, but it often can be. And there's also just like we live in a world where it's not optional. It's like even if you engage with social media, it's still relevant. It's still a thing.
well, yeah.
But like right now we're going into a Trump administration. You better ask that we're going to be looking at posts again, like on the news every day, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Right.
And so it's in a weird place where it's really if you do have that compulsion to just keep um, going back for more, it's really hard not to in an environment where there's so much prompting you all the time,
Right.
especially when things are politically crazy and there's so much to opine on, even if it ends up just being replaced by the next thing 24 hours later, pretty mad about. And
So
that's
let's
where I think Trump enters with that so
right. Let's
ridiculous.
say
He's constantly giving people
let's say you
something
have a
to
friend.
engage with.
You have a friend, and that friend's starting to go on TikTok, starting to go on X or whatever it is. How do you help them identify dog whistles? Say that's a dog whistle, and just kind of like when we were talking about the debates. You identify what it is, like right there. That's a dog whistle, and you know. What are you really trying to say here? Are you trying to say that you don't want this group of people to exist? what are we really, really talking about? This is a dog whistle. So why are you bringing this up?
Yeah,
And
I think
I
there's
think that's, yeah,
like three levels of reading dog whistles, right? There's the basic level of like word substitutions and indicators that you can just learn. Like parentheses is anti-Semitic uh, stuff to put in Jews. That's easy. Then the next level after that is focusing on thematic readings and gets a little bit more into kind of getting familiar with the particularities of dog whistles that you're dealing with.
right,
And so, that's you level up. That's a little bit harder because you have to kind of immerse yourself in it. Um,
right,
and then I think the next step above that is where you're combining a knowledge of the vocabulary and established ideas and the thematic understanding of what is actually being communicated, what is being said and implied, the sentence structure, really to pick it apart and combine that with consuming way too much of their content and media and all of that, and then get to the
right,
third level of kind of being fluent and really understanding the dog whistles. And I think that is an unfortunately very important level of understanding for some people to have, but it's absolutely something that is achievable for many people because it's just so like the path towards getting it is awful.
Right.
right.
And I don't think a lot of people are going to have the personal interest to have that same complaint to keep coming back for more and more. Like I said, did my head in a vat of acid, um, doing that. Like it takes a certain kind of mentality to read the protocols quickly and then take the understanding of that and be like, oh, I'm seeing these themes and these actions that I couldn't before. But also, I had to read the protocol to do that, and it's a very unpleasant thing to do, but it enriches understanding. So
Right.
I think we can help people by translating and pointing out the stuff that is more noticeable by simple pattern recognition and word substitution. Because there's so much that you can code just with that. You need to go into the deep end to be able to pick apart like, oh, your trans aren't real. That's much easier to get than the um deep possibly time Semitic implications of particular themes and ideas that are getting
And
expressed.
it's all situational too. It is based on each group has its own dog whistles
Exactly.
and it's situational as well. So yeah, uh, story. My mom and I were walking down Old Town Petersburg. I'm from Petersburg, Virginia, or my hometown was in Virginia, and someone drove by and just yelled, "Hey, chicken hawk!" And like it's my mom, and she like got really upset. But it's like, Mom, do you know that person? She's like, no. Then he's an idiot. He's driving like backwards in a freaking El Camino, you know, beeping his horn. It's okay, but you everybody has dog whistle. By the way, it's it's celebrated by some people. Oh, that's just trolling. This guy is a master troll. I see all of you. Just saying. But thank you so much, Alexis, for coming on. You're obviously anytime, and anyone who wants to tell their story, uh, we go through a process, but you can always contact us, and we will be in touch with you. Okay, so, um, and that's pretty much it. I appreciate you coming on, Alexis. I do.
I appreciate y'all having me.
Thank you. I'm going to end this right here, gang.